Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Wednesday, May 15th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Akron game in 108 days. The game against Michigan in 199 days. Yes, we are under 200. And with the Ohio State Michigan game right around the corner, Tony Gerdeman and I dropped a very special Michigan Monday episode of the Buckeye Weekly podcast on, you guessed it, Monday this week, talking about Sherrone Moore, the start of the Sherrone Moore era, how that's all going. The response from Michigan fans has been, let's say, mixed, which means Ohio State fans will probably enjoy it quite a bit. So make sure you check that out in the Buckeye Weekly podcast feed. All right, on today's show, I'm also welcoming in Tony to talk about some of the early TV schedules. We are starting to get sort of a drip of information on some of the early games of the season, some of the biggest games of the season. One of the first things announced, of course, not a big surprise, Ohio State Michigan will play at noon on Saturday, November 30th on Fox. We could have done the show yesterday when that came out. It was like, well, this isn't really news. We do have some actual news now. So we're going to talk about those big noon kickoff games as well as week one, which is shaping up to be a very exciting week one of college football on your television set. Welcoming in Tony. Tony, I guess before we get to week one, we're going to talk about week 0. Florida State, Georgia Tech in Ireland. Noon on ABC, we are starting the college football season with the Noles and the Yellow Jackets. Are they going to cause some kind of an international incident, Tony? Florida State fans traveling overseas, that feels like the State Department needs to be on standby.
You got to watch out for them. Fortunately, you don't have to worry about Georgia Tech fans traveling because there aren't any. So you can really just prioritize the Florida State fans and keep them in line. I think when you think about the start of college football and college football in general and Ireland, the two programs that you think about most, Florida State and Georgia Tech. So this one makes all the sense in the world to go ahead and have that over there. So it never really matters what that first game is. We're all going to be tuned in. It just depends on, are we watching 2 quarters or are we watching 4 quarters? Like, how interesting is this game going to be? And really, we generally start with like a Thursday night game most times in like a week 0, but or maybe we don't. Week 0 being a new thing over the last few years. But I'm going to be tuned in. We don't have a game that week. It's always like the week before the action really starts. There's usually some good high school games on television at that same time, but I'm going to assume that the college football will win out, certainly for me.
Yeah, I think it will win out probably for me as well. We will see what the new look Seminoles look like, the year 2 of the Brent Key Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets look like. It's still a little bit of a rebuilding process. Definitely one where you know which league both teams are in, so that is going to make it a rare thing on this show. Looking through the rest of the schedule, there were a couple of, is that a conference game? No, I don't think so. Okay, a lot of people shuffling into different spots. We will move on to week 1, Thursday, August 29th. That big Thursday. This always used to be the Steve Spurrier Memorial. I want to go play golf all Labor Day weekend. Let's get the game out of the way on Thursday night game. This year, North Dakota State at Colorado. You're going to have the big Dion bump, I'm sure, Tony. 8 p.m. ESPN. We'll see. There will undoubtedly be a bunch of other games on that night. This will not be the first one on. Will probably be the biggest one on. And, North Dakota State, we talked about this a couple weeks ago, I think, on one of the Buckeye Weekly shows we did. North Dakota State, not exactly the full-blown juggernaut that it was a couple years ago. Still a pretty darn good team. Colorado, what the heck is Colorado going to be? There's a lot of intrigue here.
There is, for one, Shedeur Sanders at quarterback. How well does Dion put all of these pieces together? Former Buckeye running back Dallin Hayden getting in there, and just how well do they put it all of these new faces, new offensive line, new defense? How well do these guys gel? And is this probably a good way to start out with an FCS opponent? And you do have a talent advantage, and you're at home, and that crowd should be pretty lively now that you've had a year to build it. But you do have to kind of get some momentum quickly, because we saw what happened last year. Everybody loved Colorado in September, and then everybody forgot about them after that, and for good reason. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. Just we all like to watch Colorado right now. We all like to watch Coach Prime while there's nothing else going on. It's when other stuff is going on is when we tend to tune out. And this one we'll be tuned in for.
Well, there will be other stuff going on Friday night. This is where you start squinting and going, this is their, oh yeah, that's where they are now. Temple at Oklahoma. Yes, SEC member Oklahoma, 7 p.m. on ESPN Friday night. Followed by TCU of the Big 12 at the ACC's Stanford, Tony, 10:30 p.m. on ESPN on that Friday night. Neither of these are particularly exciting games, which is good because you should be out watching a high school football game that night anyway. But when you get back from your high school football game, you'll be able to walk in the door and probably make yourself some popcorn or something and get yourself a beverage and then be able to turn on the kickoff of an ACC game 10:30 p.m., just like God intended.
Yeah, this is going to be brand new for all of us, and we're going to enjoy it. And you're absolutely right. I'll come back from a high school game, just depends on how far away it is. Is it a 20-minute drive home or is it a 2-hour drive home? But I will definitely, first thing I do is sit down, put this one on, and just bask in the glory of whatever this is. I don't know. I'm going to assume it's not going to go well for Stanford, but I don't know that. We'll see, Tom. I don't know how many people are paying attention to Stanford, including me. I know I'm not, but anybody else?
Yeah, and the Stanford and Cal as ACC teams, I don't know how long it's going to take my brain to wrap itself around that as this is where they live now, and it just, teams who can see the Pacific or Pacific adjacent water from their campuses probably should not be in the Atlantic Coast Conference, but here we are, lots of stupid things happening. Speaking of the Atlantic Coast Conference and stupid things happening, Tony, Saturday, August 31st, Georgia against Clemson, biggest game of week 1 in Atlanta at noon on ABC. You said, boy, this is going over great with Georgia and Clemson fans, that it is a noon kickoff, not even big noon. This is an ABC game. Boy, this is fascinating in several different directions, one of which is I wonder if this is ABC kind of taking a little bit of a shot across the bow at Fox and, okay, you made all your money with big noon kickoff and monopolizing that time slot. Maybe not anymore.
It has been a little interesting to watch for this one. And I think part of the reason Georgia and Clemson is a noon game is because there's no real fantastic Fox option. The best option there is Penn State at West Virginia, and maybe that'll eventually be announced. But there's no real competition. And also, you've already got the Notre Dame, Texas A&M, which we'll get to that night. So I don't think Clemson fans or Georgia fans ever expected this to be a noon game. That was never really in their thought process. So when they saw that, there are a bunch of reactions on Twitter that I didn't see anybody going, yes, I was hoping for noon. This is the one I wanted. Get that noon slot, get to the stadium by 9, enjoy the game, get home by 6, and just enjoy the rest of the day. That was not the reaction I saw from any of them. But I do wonder how much we're going to start seeing this, as you're talking about. How much are they going to continue to try to compete with that Fox time slot at big noon? Because as we talked about on a recent Buckeye Weekly, of the top 15 regular season ratings in the games last year, the 15 highest rated regular season games, rather, 5 or 6 of them were the big noon kickoff. So that's been a spot that they've been able to secure. And so will they attempt to get in there? And it reminds me a little bit of what the NFL is doing right now, putting some regular season games up against the playoffs in terms of giving them to NBC, here, take them, because they're trying to just, stick it to college football. And this is kind of ABC, ESPN, Disney sticking it to Fox.
Yeah, no one can seem to play nicely. No one can sort of seem to coordinate their things and space things out and do things that are in the best interest of the fans. That's not what this is about. Speaking of things that are not in the best interest of the fans, Miami is playing at Florida. That's not in the best interest of anyone. This feels like, boy, this is real early for a game where one coach is going to feel real uncomfortable about his job status coming out of this one. But this might be one where Mario Cristobal and oh goodness, what was the name of the guy from the Louisiana Lafayette? Billy, what's his name from who's coaching Florida now? I want to say Billy Corgan. That's not it. He's coaching the Smashing Pumpkins. Anyway, we'll get there. Billy Napier. There we go. My brain got there eventually. Yes. Billy Napier. He might want to win this game. They have a brutal schedule this year. We don't have time to talk about that. But Miami at Florida, 3:30 p.m. ABC. Colorado State at Texas, 3:30 p.m. on ESPN. Western Kentucky at Alabama, 7 p.m. on ESPN. Notre Dame at Texas A&M, 7:30 p.m. on ABC. The Mike Elko debut for the Aggies. Year 3 of Marcus Freeman for Notre Dame. There are a couple games, these are some big program names here, but boy, there are some coaches who this could be the start of a real uncomfortable fall for a couple of these guys if they start out with a loss.
Well, Mike Elko, you don't want to lose this game, and you've got all of this really good momentum and goodwill, and then you lose at home, season opener in front of 100,000 at night. But yeah, you could say the same thing about Alabama. The Florida thing, I have Miami as a playoff team. So if Florida can trip them up, that's not going to keep Miami out of the playoffs per se. But you mentioned that being an uncomfortable game. It's going to be uncomfortable for everybody. It's a 3:30 kick in Florida on August 31st. Bring your visors and your sunblock. But yeah, some really interesting couple of debuts there. I do like how it's spaced out a little bit. You got a big noon game. You got a big 3:30-ish game with Miami in Florida. And then you've got the Notre Dame at Texas A&M, which is where college game day will be. So that's where Nick Saban will be, I believe, as well.
Yes, that is the plan for college game day. And that sounds like the plan for Nick Saban. So yeah, boy, that's going to be a very different and interesting spot. We do not yet know officially what the plan is for Ohio State on that week. They're playing Akron. We do not know. They have not announced the TV game network or time for that. Boy, Ohio State at Akron going up against Georgia Clemson at noon. If that would, we've talked about that as potentially could that be the big noon kickoff game just because you get the Ohio State eyeballs there. Boy, that'll be. I will have one eye on the Ohio State game and one eye, probably keeping an eye on the Georgia Clemson game as well, as I'm sure you will if that's how that all pans out. Sunday, September 1st. This is two real good brand names. We'll see what it looks like on the field this year. USC of the Big Ten now facing LSU of the SEC, and both teams replacing pretty high profile quarterbacks this year. That's a pretty good Sunday night game. That's 7:30 ABC. Monday night, Boston College, Florida State. That is 7:30 p.m. on ESPN. So 2 Florida State games, Georgia Tech and Boston College, that we've been talking about already. This feels like these are presumably 2, at least decent games, decent matchups. And, you get the Bill O'Brien start of the Bill O'Brien era at Boston College. There's some stuff to be interested in here.
Yeah. And you get USC, LSU in Vegas and just a neutral site. Interesting. 2 new quarterbacks taking over there, 2 new eras, if you will. It will be, I guess, you look at that Monday night game, it's like, it could be more exciting, but I guess let's see what Florida State does after getting back from Ireland. Let's see how Boston College feels about Florida State going to Ireland and that, the type of thing. And like, hey, that's our place, or, that's me, that's us in Notre Dame. How dare you? FSU comes back and is like talking trash about Ireland's just not that great. It's kind of a scuzzy place. And then that's really going to create an issue with Boston College and Bill O'Brien and all of that stuff. So, we'll watch it, obviously. I'm looking forward to it. It's football. It's Monday. But then, the next day is work. So I don't know how many people are going to stay up for the whole thing.
Yeah, that Monday night game, for some reason, that Monday night game always feels like it's just not quite up to the par of the rest of the weekend. But it is such a good weekend where you've got 5 nights in a row where you've got college football on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So you really, really can't complain. This is the time of year when one night of college football seems like it would be extremely glorious. So 5 nights in a row to start the season, we will take it. Some other things that we will take, the first 3 big noon kickoff games of the season. Fox got the first 3 picks for the Big Ten games. And this is stuff that we had, again, talked about on Buckeye Weekly about a week and a half ago. Texas at Michigan, week 2. Alabama at Wisconsin, week 3. And then Michigan, of course, at Ohio State in the final week of the season, November 30th. I don't think there are any huge surprises here. These are all going to be very, very big games, very, very big brands in all of these. And, this is one where we kind of deferred to Matt Sars, who does TV picks and sort of projects this kind of stuff, and said he generally knows what he's talking about. And he said, these are going to be the 3. And he was right.
Yeah, he was right. He also says Ohio State week 1 on CBS, if I recall correctly, at 3:30. So we'll see about that one. But these 3 were much easier picks than an Ohio State non-conference game this year. But I can't argue with Fox's decision, but it is kind of I don't know, is a little bit weird, or maybe how do you feel about Fox? 2 of their 3 first picks involve SEC teams. Like, yeah, you want those eyeballs, obviously, but it's like your thing is the Big Ten, and your picks here, the 2 that, obviously Ohio State, Michigan is always going to be number 1, but your other 2 top choices involve SEC teams.
Yeah, and that's a great way to get eyeballs from all around the country. Those are going to be games that do monster numbers. The fact that Texas is an SEC team now, still real weird to me. Alabama coming up to Wisconsin to play, that's really weird. There's going to be a lot of very, very different stuff. The interesting thing here now is, because those are the top 3, we did a whole Buckeye Weekly show a couple weeks ago, projecting Ohio State, Oregon. Where is that going to be? When is that going to be? Where is that going to be televised? Ohio State at Penn State. Where is that going to be televised? When is that going to be? Those are not going to be big noon games, almost certainly, because those are probably the next 2 off the board in terms of Big Ten games. One of those likely to end up on CBS, one of those likely to end up on NBC. We will see what order that all plays out in. If you want to hear us talk through that whole process, you can find that on the Buckeye Weekly podcast about a week ago. But the rest of those games, there are games coming up, early season, kickoff times, and television coverage going to be announced Thursday, May 30th. That was kind of the updated. Here's when you're going to get week 1, week 2, kind of your full lineups of all of those. So that's coming up in just about 2 weeks. Have that to look forward to. You got a lot more to look forward to as well as we head into summer camp season at Ohio State. June, a very, very busy time with lots of official visits, lots of summer camp visits, lots of chances for us to see and meet and interview some of the top prospects in the nation and the state. We have all that coming up for you at BuckeyeHuddle.com. And of course, we've got our Southern swing going on right now. Mark, Kevin, touring the South, going all over the place, talking to a lot of really, really interesting top prospects. A lot of guys with an eye on Ohio State. You can find all that at BuckeyeHuddle.com, and especially on the Huddle board presented by Jeff Ruby Steakhouse. That's for our members only portion of our site. That's where we have a lot of great insider information and details that you can't find on our YouTube or on the front page of the site. So if you want to support us, you want to support the things that we do, and you want to learn a little bit more about Ohio State football, that's the way to do it. Sign up today at BuckeyeHuddle.com. And of course, we are running our annual membership sale right now, about 40% off. Sign up today. That sale is going to close pretty soon. You can extend your current membership. You can convert your monthly membership into an annual membership, or you can just sign up for an annual membership. Give it a shot right now at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.